Para MariskalRock traemos desde Wacken a Chris y Paul de la Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Savatage. Vamos a preguntarles sobre el show de ayer que dieron único en Europa y vamos ahora con ello. After 13 years since your dissolutions, how come about the idea of meeting again?
Well, we've been talking about Savatage needed to come back when the time was right and everything was going to be like this. This was very special. And Paul and John talked for a long time about when the time was right. And Wacken, Germany for Savatage is like our second home. And we figured there would be no better place to come back than here. Of course, Paul had the idea of making this something that nobody's ever done before, having the two bands play at once, and we always wanted to play, but we were not going to do it just like where somebody goes, here's a reunion tour, this is that. That's not the way we wanted it to be special, and because it's, like we said, Germany's our second home, so we wanted to make a special show, and I'll tell you more about why we picked this place.
Also, you know, we've been asked forever, but we didn't want to just do it for the money or just run through, and it had to be right. And then when Paul and Thomas called and said, you guys can have the headlines, you know, at dark on the very first night, you supported us on the very first night, and you could have both stages. I said, okay, this might be perfect. And then, so I said, do Savatage on one stage, and we, Savatage for the first time in over a decade. Called John. I said, John, if I do this, because I love John, but he's getting unhealthy and everything else. And I said, if I do this, you stop drinking and everything else. He goes, Paul, that day he stopped drinking, hasn't had a drink in over a year, lost weight over 100 pounds, his voice got way better. And called Zach got back on board, and we just got the whole thing. And then I knew on Trans-Siberian Orchestra has never played with the entire band. Because, when in 93 when we started with Atlantic, I told Ahmed, I'm on 4 guitar players, 4 keyboard players, 2 drummers, 24 lead singers, full string section. And I said, this would be great. First 40 minutes, Savatage, doing all those great Savatage songs. And then the second, goes to the next stage, and, Night Castle, Beethoven was last night. Plus we got to showcase songs from the album coming out in October. But then I wanted to do something that had never been done before, which was to take all of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, all 4 guitar players, except to make it even better. I wanted to make it, Wacken is, number one, it's like the cathedral of heavy metal. It's like
the Holy Land.
Yes, and
the Holy Land, yeah.
Exactly. And everybody knows about it all over the world. Everybody's played it, but I wanted to do something different. And I noticed, over the years that, if you're in front of, the true metal stage, you can't see anything on the black. And if you're in front of one, you can't see anything on the other. And if you're way in the back, you just have a bunch of TV screens. So I said, okay, this has never been done, but we're going to try to do it. And so we designed a system, that on paper, that we built in the computers. And normally with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, we're rehearsing it in the Coliseum for 4 weeks to make sure everything works. But we're in the middle of an album, we didn't have time. So basically, we built it, put it on a freighter, shipped it over by sea. Then the band rehearsed just musically, in
We
Tampa.
had 18 solid days of rehearsal. We rehearsed more for this one show than we have tours. It was crazy. And actually, it's funny because Trans-Siberian Orchestra is probably the only band ever that's never, ever played with another. We never had an opening act. Every show we've ever done since the very beginning, it's just been Trans-Siberian Orchestra. So we always have, like Paul says, you have it rehearsed, you have that control, you know exactly what's going on. We have the biggest show of the band's history, and we just brought it in and went at it, And it was the first time, like I said, there was actually bands that played before us. We never had. There's never been a band ever that's played before Trans-Siberian Orchestra until yesterday.
But the scary thing, when you're playing on one stage, you have each other in eyesight, so like you can look, you know where to hit the notes. Here, half the band couldn't see the other half of the band, so everybody had to be on the exact same nervous system, and it had to be like one band. And then, Wednesday night, we were supposed to test everything, but a windstorm came through, knocked all the equipment down, And then the generators ran out of fuel because we used so much electric, so we lost an hour there. But the Wacken crew was great. We put it all back together, made it all work. The first time we ever tried it was the show.
Yeah.
That's like saying, okay, we're going to go to the moon, but we're not going to test anything or do any test rockets. Just get in the capsule and try to get back home alive. But it was really, really scary. And then it's, the rain, the cold, and everything else. This is the most scared I've ever been. But the great thing about it was, if you're, if you're in front of the black metal stage, you can see, Chris, getting into his notes. On the other stage, you can see, the singers getting into it.
Change
But if you're way, way back, you actually have the better seats because in the second half, when it's just TSO on both stages, you see the stage, bam, 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 all the pyro. It's just so huge, just so big, so cinematic. We just wanted to do something that covered hundreds of meters where nobody had a bad seat, where the sound was great, and we just wanted to do something that no band had ever done before. And we were petrified because this cost unbelievable millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And my stage manager gave me a book this thick of what could go wrong. And the list of things that could go right was one. It works. And the gods were good, and everything worked. And even the city was nice because we went, overtime past midnight. They're like, keep going. And by the end of the night, I was like, thank you, God. And it was magical. So now we head back to, America, finish a new album, do the winter tour, and then try to come up with another show that's even bigger.
Yeah. So you are planning to tour over Europe, or no?
Oh yeah, this is our third time back to Europe. Third?
Yeah, third. Yeah.
And we basically Savatage alone is a full-time job. TSO alone is a full-time job, and now they want us to make a movie, and our single biggest problem is time.
Yeah.
Because neither Savatage and TSO especially, it's not two guitars, drums, bass, and a singer. And also, it's been a really complicated year because, my whole life, starting in the mid-'70s, record plant in New York City, Hit Factory, Media Sound, those were my main recording studios. Now they're all, one's a restaurant, one's a shoe store, this, that, the other thing. Restaurant. Yep. Record plant, that's where John Lennon, Bruce Springsteen, David Bowie did all, Jimi Hendrix did Electric Ladyland there.
That's actually where John Oliver was fumbling on Believe.
Oh yeah, that's where he recorded the whole mountain.
On John Lennon, the piano that John Lennon did Imagine on was where John Oliver was playing Believe.
That's true. And then so all these studios are now out of business, but there was one studio in Tampa, Florida called Laura Sound where we recorded Edge of Thorns, Handful of Rain,
Savatage did
Castle.
the very first two records there too.
Not that studio. It was a different little.
It was a different
place.
Oh, really?
But then last year we heard they were going out of business and they were going to sell it. And I didn't want to see this great studio, built by the Morris brothers with these two great SSL rooms, these beautiful sounding acoustics.
It's a cool studio.
And I turned to John and said, we can't let this get torn down. We have to buy it. So last year we bought Morris Sound, and so
That's really good trees.
everybody's been there from Ozzy Osbourne to like so many great hard death metal bands, etc. Recorded their albums there. Iced Earth, Obituary, all those bands.
The band Death.
Yeah.
From Tampa too, and that was.
And so we bought it, added all this new gear, put in like this super state-of-the-art security system, and so now we have our own studio, because you can't make Savatage or TSO albums on Pro Tools in your basement. You can't film Lord of the Rings on your iPhone. I mean, you can, but it'll look horrible. You need a real movie studio, and you can't make great albums in your basement or your living room. You need a studio, and it's a different environment. And so we bought the studio. We're in the middle of Letters from the Labyrinth. We're getting ready for the winter tour, and then when Adam looked at Paul, you got Wacken coming up in 2 months. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
Was I on LSD? And so stopped everything. Everybody goes into rehearsal. and it all worked. I mean, we're talking, with this one show alone, like way over 2,000 hotel rooms, 500 flights, I mean, freighters worth of equipment. And by the way, this is all for one show. After this, we destroy it all and build a new system for next year. And it's just always make it bigger, always make it better, always find a way, to make the fans go, wow. And, so we're going to keep going. And, God willing, both Savatage and TSO will be going long after we're buried in the ground.
Okay, so, Chris, for preparing the show, what about choosing prepare the songs? Choosing between all the songs you have.
That that was a really, really tough thing to do. I think at the end of the end of the day, there was ones that we had to do. I mean, we couldn't play without doing it. We had to do Believe, and you have to do Hall of the Mountain Kings. John Leaves the Mountain. So from there, it was just like, all right, well, you got Zach is coming back. Edge of Thorns was his staple song, and then of course Chance was probably every time we came over here, Chance got the best audience.
Well, no, Chance
just loved that song.
And Chance, like just sort of like Morphine Charlie in particular, has so many vocals.
Yeah, and Chance was the first.
Savatage.
I think Chance was the first heavy metal song ever to have counterpoint.
It was
the very first one ever. And like Paul says, we couldn't do Morphine Child in particular. You have that song. When you go into what we call counterpoint, it starts with vocals that layer in 5 parts and they layer in harmony. So as a 6-person band, there's 10 vocal parts in that part. So unless everybody had 2 voices coming out of their mouth, they can't do it. There's no way. So this was the first time we were able to do those. So that's obviously songs like Morphine Child were chosen, Hourglass, which we did on the TSO tours in Europe, were done because we were like, wow, we can finally do these songs and have these parts, and all the orchestration was there. So I mean, Savatage had orchestration in every record since Mounting, since Paul got involved, and we were able to bring those songs to life on the stage, which for me, I'm listening to what's coming out, and I'm hearing these vocals, and I'm like, you want to stop playing and listen to the record. It's like, it's not the record, we're playing this right now.
One of the nice things about TSO is that, and this was for all the bands, when I was growing up, you have bands that would have huge chorals like in the middle of their songs. When you see them live, they would either drop it out or they would just put a tape. But Savatage, TSO, no tapes, no lip syncing ever. And so when Trans-Siberian Orchestra started, I turned to John and said, John, there's songs that we did as Savatage that have never performed like the album. But TSO has enough, and actually the idea really originally came from John Anderson from Yes, came out and did Roundabout with us for 4 shows. And Roundabout has a huge choral in the middle that they've never done live, it's only been on the album. And I said, John, can I do it like the album? He goes, you're game, I'm game. So 4 shows, we did Roundabout,
Yeah, it was
like
fun.
the album.
It was fun.
And it was just great. And a reporter in America said to me, you'll do it for Yes, but you don't do it for Savatage? And I'm like, wow, he's got a point.
Yeah.
So we started to take those songs and, strip them in.
It's crazy when you do a show with John Anderson and he's thanking you for making the music sound like he always wanted it to sound live. He was like, oh my God, I always wanted Yes to sound like this. You couldn't do it without all the people.
Okay. So about the show, how were your feelings after the show?
Two things. When I was back by the board, because, making sure the pyro, the lasers, and everything were firing on time, once I was sure it was all going great, took my security sergeant, decided to go on stage and do a couple songs. And I'm walking, it's freezing, it's raining, and nobody's going anywhere. I'm like, this is insane. Because when I say cold, like, by the time I got to the stage, my hands were so stiff, I couldn't get them to move. On the stage, they had at least a pyro all night. But back at the soundboard, no pyro.
Luckily, I played sloppy to start with, so it didn't matter.
But, and then when it ended, and you just heard the audience going, TSO, TSO. And I turned to Adam, like, can we do an encore? And he goes, Mayor says no. So, but the Mayor audience is so great. People at Wacken were great. And they were just and by I just don't mean the promoter. I mean everybody in town to let us go over time. And again, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We had to go for it. It worked. So now we have to figure out something bigger and better and do it again. And so, you know, after we finish Let Us Elaborate, figure out what that is.
What about you?
I think, well, once I stopped crying and Believe and watched everything happen, like he said, I played festivals for 25 years. Never seen the end of the night, everybody's still there, especially when it's bad weather. Everybody was still there. Everybody's hands were in the air. I sat there going, I'm
used to festivals.
I don't know if everybody realized what just happened. We did something really special.
11 years here in this rhythm.
Yeah. I've never seen everybody stay to the end, especially when the weather's
When
bad.
it started to pour, I expected everybody to head back.
And I stayed on the stage a little bit after we were done, and I just watched, and I kind of breathed out, and I was like, you know, it felt good. I was so happy. I couldn't stop smiling. I was smiling when I was crying. I was up there. It was just, for me, I felt like I was at home. It's funny because in rehearsal, we're going through everything, and I'm so nervous about details, this, that, the other thing. We walked on that stage on Wednesday night to rehearse, and I was like, this is home. This is where I feel at home. When we stepped up there and played that music, this music is meant, you know, the TSO music is meant to be played for this many people.
Little by little, one day we'll get up to Scandinavia. You know, we have to hit Finland, you know, Norway, Sweden. We're gonna get up there too.
Yeah, no, it's just music. It's music that translates to that kind of a crowd, and that's a difficult thing. You know, it's to have that not only lyrically but musically and just visually. It was home. You know, we came home to Wacken, the whole thing. TSO Savatage. We stepped on that stage. It was like, you know,
it also felt right for what's going on around the world. And I seriously mean this. I was talking with Walter and Thomas last night. You know, right now, Europe, Asia, forget the Middle East. You know, North America, South America. You know, corruption. You know, everything great in humanity starts with trust. You know, when the first caveman could trust that the caveman next door wasn't going to steal his berries when he went to sleep or kill him, that's when human beings start to advance. And everything's, you know, built on trust. You trust your government's not going to steal your taxpayers. You trust the banker's not going to run off with your money. And that trust is starting to break down. But there's some magic here in the metal community on multiple levels. Number one, you know, because on the night of sound check, I was wandering in one of the camp areas, and I see kids, some in tents, you know, some in sleeping bags, you know, with their computers, you know, their life possessions, their money. Nobody's worried about being robbed or anything else. And, you know, if somebody gets hurt, you don't think. Nobody's just going to walk by you. They're going to stop and help. And then, two really meant, honestly, when the show all worked and I heard the audience going, TSO, that was great. But honestly, my favorite part of this event happened before the first note was played. It was Wednesday night, and while I was waiting for them to reset up the gear, I wandered into the camp area, and I bumped into two young men who had come all the way from Iraq, and I think they were Sunni Muslims. And we talked for a little while. It was really nice. And then about half an hour later, I bumped into two other young men who were from Iran, who were Shiite Muslims. And I'm sure you guys know that right now in the Middle East and Syria, they're like, you know, killing each other left, right, and center. But I would bet you $1 million, €1 million, that if God forbid, 2 years from now, these four young men end up in two militias and they're in a battle, and all of a sudden one of the guys notices, wait a second, was I barking with you, you know, in 2015? The guy, yes! I bet anything they would unload their weapons, they would talk, they would reminisce, and they wouldn't shoot each other, and they would go their separate ways. And that's the power of music. It brings people together. And, you know, you see people from every continent here. We just did another press conference. I'm talking to a bunch of Chinese people from Beijing. And he's like, Paul, you have to bring this to play Tiananmen Square. I'm going to do it, you know, because there's three places I have to play still. In front of the pyramids, in front of the Parthenon, and in front of Forbidden City. And, you Then after that,
Okay.
I can die.
So, you plan to record the show for a DVD?
Oh,
Oh,
there's never been a single TSO show I have not recorded. There's never been a single Savatage show I have not recorded. You know Mountain Lake.
Yeah.
We have just, vaults. And, one day when we have time, but right now we're busy making the new stuff. And eventually we'll get all this stuff out. But also on a certain level, you really can't capture Trans-Siberian Orchestra on a DVD for multiple reasons. You need to feel the heat of the arena. And also, if you watch a DVD, if you hear Chris do a great solo, you get a rush. If you hear, Kayla do a great vocal or John do a great vocal, you get a rush. But if you're there at Wacken and it's a magical moment, you get a rush, but you feel the excitement of the person in front of you, the left of you, the right of you, and then it just creates an energy loop, and it just builds and builds and builds. And also, especially with the internet, obviously you guys know how it destroyed the record industry, but we still have live touring. But the internet is great because it gets, people in Kenya can get books they never could get. But the bad thing is, kids don't go outside and play soccer. They play it on their, at home and everything. People just spend all their time inside. Anything that gets people together and talking is healthy. And
I think if you release everything you do live, it stops you from wanting to go see the live show.
Yeah.
There's something magical about, like Paul said, when we make records, we're making them with the ultimate goal, playing the music for the people live. And if we sit there and give them
we can always
live
do
visual,
we can always make the DVD. And one day I will do that. But meantime, my biggest problem isn't money. My biggest problem is time.
Yeah.
And to make the DVD right, I would basically have to take a year off, which would mean at least one less tour and one less album. And so maybe when I'm old in a wheelchair, I'll start to put it together. Or when I find somebody that I can really trust, like one of the band musicians, like, oh, I want to take off from the road. Like if Chris decides one day to retire, I'm like, Chris, go in the library, start putting it together, because Chris also is really good at computers. Like, I'm embarrassed to admit this. I just learned how to text yesterday.
Okay.
It's like my mom. Oh. My mom, I got a cell phone for my mom,
Right back,
particularly so I could get a hold of my mom, and she doesn't know how to use it.
Okay.
It's like
So,
she can't.
Will we see Savatage in Spain?
I can't predict the future.
No?
Nobody can. We did this, and we're just gonna. We never ever make anything.
Okay.